Now, thousands are expected to take part in Black Lives Matter protests held this weekend, with LNP Senator for Queensland Matt Canavan saying there's a double standard and a lack of consistency within restrictions as leaders express public health concerns over mass gatherings. I spoke to the LNP Senator for Queensland Matt Canavan just a short time ago.
I don't know what state premiers are doing here. They're certainly being inconsistent. If you can't go to the footy, if you can't go to concerts, if you can't even go to church in big numbers at least, why is it okay to get out in the streets and protest? There's an absolute double standard here. Sure, I agree with the New South Wales Premier that there's a right to protest in this country, but there's a right to express your religion freely too, and that right has been circumscribed because of the public health implications of COVID. So I don't see why this other right should similarly not be circumscribed if that's what is needed to fight this virus. We just ask people to be consistent.
It does seem extraordinary that you could have 30,000, 40,000 in Melbourne tomorrow when, just a week ago they were fining 10 young skateboarders $1,600 each for congregating in a park. You had, a woman fined taking her daughter out on a driving lesson. You couldn't play golf, you couldn't fish, and then all of a sudden... I just find the inconsistencies here, Senator Canavan, a real concern.
It's absolutely absurd. I mean, I've got a good idea here. Maybe we could kill two birds with one stone. Why don't we just coordinate the Black Lives Matters protest with an NRL game, and they just do the protest at the game, and then we could have a crowd at the footy as well in the background. I mean, if you can't have the people turn up at the footy to watch that, why is this other thing okay? It doesn't make any sense, and it seems to me here that there's apparently a view that it's only right-wing protests that can spread the coronavirus, because they were all denounced by state premiers a few weeks ago when there were people trying to protest against lockdowns. So those protests are a potential public health disaster. But if you're a left-wing protest march, it's all sweet. You've got no chance of spreading the coronavirus, apparently. I can't work that out. Maybe your viewers can.
I don't think our viewers can either, and we have very, very intelligent viewers, I must say. Matt Canavan, now, you spoke about restrictions. Now, this isn't playing out particularly well, I don't think, in Queensland for Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk, who has kept the borders closed, has indicated she will continue to keep the borders closed until community transmission rates in New South Wales and Victoria subside. Now, we haven't had a COVID case in New South Wales in 5 days. I think, we're getting to the pointy end here, and of course the losers in all this are those mum and dad tourism operators, those tourism operators who rely upon the snowbirds, those from the southern states, to come up into Queensland and holiday, particularly during the July and September holidays. What are your thoughts on exactly what is going through Premier Palaszczuk's mind right now on this?
I think it's pure politics, Peter. I think that's exactly what she's up to. She says she's following the science, but in my view, the only science she's following is political science. She's made a call. Presumably they did some polling saying that Queenslanders sort of like to, stick it to New South Wales, and I'll stand up and be Maroon and what have you and do that. And I make a prediction, Peter. I'm sure she will backflip on this at some point. They're just working out the best way to do that. And then she'll try and present herself as the hero, and it's just ridiculous. We just want common sense in crises like these, and we expect our leaders to be upfront with us and not play these ducks and drakes and ridiculous posturing that the Premier is going through at the moment. It is unbecoming, and the sooner we just get a clear plan for reopening for Queensland, the better for so many businesses in Queensland, the better for our futures, because we've got to get back to work.
Well, of course, we've also got the Victorian Premier, Dan Andrews, who's under fire over his Belt and Road policy with China. There is accusations, even among his own federal Labor colleagues in Canberra, that he's putting Victoria's interest above the national interest. But I see the Prime Minister and the Indian Prime Minister, Modi, spoke very appreciatively yesterday with each other about trade ties with India. Is it time that we severed, or not severed, but certainly wound back our reliance on China and embraced countries like India?
Well, I think it's been clear for a while that we've needed to diversify our trading relationships, and that's why I've been a big supporter of boosting relations with countries like India. We've benefited significantly from the rise of China. We all had a hope that China would continue to liberalise and go on a path of greater democracy. That has not happened clearly, and the behaviour of the Chinese government over the past couple of years has been very, very disappointing. Now, we can't change that. They're their own country. We've just got to respond in a way that maintains our independence and reduces our vulnerabilities. And the way to do that is to make sure we don't have too many eggs in one basket and try and spread that risk. And that's why these discussions this week are so important with the Indian Prime Minister. India is a country that will overtake China in terms of population the next decade. It did have the fastest economic growth of any major country in the world until these recent coronavirus events. It's got huge potential, and we've got a lot to offer India, and a lot to get back in return as well. That's why I was such a big supporter of the Adani project. I mean, thank God we got that away. Imagine how weaker we'd be right now if Bill Shorten had got elected, Jackie Trad got her wish, and the Adani mine had been knocked off. We would not have had this potential diversification, potential alternative trade with another big country right now.
Well, that was my next question. I noticed Adani today announced a particular stage of the project going ahead, 600 extra jobs. And look, it didn't look good there for a while, with Shorten on track to win last year and Jackie Trad urging miners to re-skill. The relationship with Adani, and in particular India, was very much at stake over this. So in many respects, I think the Adani project proceeding has helped our relationship with India and the trade benefits that come with that.
There's no doubt it has, Peter. I visited India a number of times when I was Minister for Resources, and this was a constant topic of discussion, particularly given Indian businesses have often been told that it's hard to do business in India by Australian businesses. But then an Indian business comes to Australia and they had to wait 10 years to get a simple approval for a major project. They were led on by the Queensland government originally. The Bligh government encouraged them to come to Queensland. And then after they'd gone through all the hoops and spent a lot of money, the Jackie Trad got in and the thing completely turned around. So they were bemused by it all, and it was very positive to have that project proceed. And for all those people out there denigrating the company, complaining about coal, as I say now, the people of Central Queensland, the people of North Queensland who voted en masse to support that project last year have been vindicated in the events of the last few months, because thank God we do have now a burgeoning trade relationship with India to rest back on. Nothing can replace the trade we have with China overnight, but an old Chinese proverb says, when's the best time to start planting a tree? Well, it was probably 20 years ago, but the next best time is today. And what we've got to do today is get on with the job of diversifying our trade relationship.
Yeah, he was a very smart guy, Confucius. There's no doubt about that. Well, look, just before you go, Matt, I want to talk to you about Josh Frydenberg earlier in the week, of course, announcing Australia had gone into recession. I think, doesn't that underscore how important it is to change the dynamic around the way we do business in this country, particularly when it comes to red and green tape and the bureaucracy that often gets in the way? And you've seen it firsthand as a senior cabinet minister. Yep. You've seen firsthand the way in which obstacles are invariably put in front of projects, particularly at local government level.
Absolutely, Peter. We've got a little bit fat and lazy, I'd say, as a country in the last 30 years, almost 30 years since we had a recession. And it's understandable over that period of time you start to maybe forget what's really important and how hard it is sometimes to generate that growth, because it just seems too easy. And when people get things too easy, they tend to not be as grateful for what they have. It's not easy, and it won't be easy to return to the type of economic growth we had. We're going to have to work at it, and that means getting serious about how we evaluate projects and investments. As I've said before, we've had to hibernate the economy to respond to the coronavirus. It's about time we think about hibernating the regulators, maybe putting them in the deep freeze, in fact, so that we can unlock business opportunities in this country and not allow small little things hold up projects for years. We've got to back our farmers, we've got to back our miners, we've got to back our manufacturing industry, because it's those industries that create wealth and jobs in this country.